Hi, I'm Tyrrell of Uncommon Knowledge, and welcome to 3 things I can't treat without hypnosis. Why hypnosis reaches the parts other therapies can't reach. Now, I've seen misery in many manifestations, and when I worked in a psychiatric hospital in the late 1980s, I felt that there had to be a better way of helping the morbidly afraid, the depressed, the angry patients, and even the psychotic patients, other than just through containment or drugging that was the staple treatment at the time. The sparse therapy that was available, and it really was limited, all tried to help people change consciously through sheer willpower, or it encouraged minute analysis of unconscious motivations and disturbances that plagued these poor patients. And I really hated it and always felt there had to be a better way of treating people who were emotionally disturbed. So I left the hospital and learned how to really help people. Through psychotherapy, I could work more effectively with the conscious mind, but more importantly, I learnt clinical hypnosis. And this, much to my own amazement, turned out to be the real missing part of the jigsaw, helping disturbed people make quite staggering changes sometimes. So why hypnosis? What is it about hypnosis which makes it such a special way of helping people who have emotional and sometimes even physical problems? I don't just use hypnosis with my psychotherapy clients because it's comfortable and can wonderfully amplify resources and help them feel so good, although it does all of that. I, and now thousands of other therapists, use it because the unconscious mind is the part of us that produces and maintains psychological problems in the first place. So we're using hypnosis to work on the level of the problem itself. And this is why I say that we need to work with the unconscious mind when seeking to help people, not just their conscious cognitions. And I say this because it's not the conscious mind that knows how to release insulin from the pancreas or produce a dream at night when we sleep or heal scarred skin. But all those mechanisms can be affected by hypnosis, but not through conscious means. It's not the conscious mind that knows how we blush when we feel embarrassed, and we don't consciously decide to have a flashback after we've been traumatized or to slide into a depression. All these happen through unconscious means. We don't purposefully set out to consciously do them. So we should be working with the part of the mind that does them. And it's within the unconscious, sometimes known as the subconscious, that real change happens. But why is that? I think all therapists, almost by definition, should be able to use inner work with their clients. And all inner work is, to a greater or lesser degree, hypnotic in nature. So, contrary to popular belief, it's actually easier to change feelings in order to naturally change damaging thoughts than the other way around. You know, you don't just try to change your thinking so your feelings change. That can be really hard work. But if your feelings change, then your thoughts naturally change. And that's partly because there are more connections leading up from the emotional parts of the brain to the thinking neocortex brain than the other way about. So the unconscious mind houses the vastness of all the stuff you know, but you don't know that you know. And scientists have estimated that every second our 5 senses take in 11 million pieces of information. But we can only consciously process about 40 bits of information per second. So large parts of our experience are completely unknowable to us as far as conscious awareness is concerned. And the sort of psychotherapy that tries to make everything conscious misses the point that large parts of ourselves need to be unknowable as far as the conscious mind is concerned. The sort of psychotherapy that tries to make everything conscious misses the point that large parts of ourselves need to be unknowable and out of sight. We don't need to be, nor can we be, conscious of every subliminal causal factor behind our behavior. Yes, it can be vital to examine unconscious, unhealthy assumptions and identify cognitive biases and thinking errors and all that sort of thing, recognize depressive thinking styles and help clients challenge them. Certainly that's a vital part of the work that we do. But alongside that, we need to be able to use deep restorative calm and relaxation techniques such as hypnosis to help people feel better fast. But when you use the mighty powerhouse of someone's mind to help them through a difficulty with hypnosis, you don't always know exactly what made the difference. So with that in mind, here's my list of 3 things I just couldn't treat, or not nearly so effectively, if I didn't know how to use clinical hypnosis with my clients. So, number 1, post-traumatic stress disorder, otherwise known as PTSD, and also phobias. So this one is really a no-brainer for me. For the roughly 25% of people who develop PTSD after a traumatic incident, the only effective treatment might be a hypnotic technique. And the reason for that is that PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is hypnotic, and I'll explain why. So talking about the trauma, even just trying to put what happened into words, can sometimes actually worsen a victim's trauma by reactivating it in the brain. So critical incident debriefing has been shown to be have a worsening effect on those 25% of people who are vulnerable to long-term PTSD, because the trauma can be embedded deeper. Dr. Noreen Tyrrell, an occupational health and counselling psychologist specialising in post-traumatic stress, explains it like this. She said, if a trauma victim is debriefed in a state of high emotion, the process can increase the arousal to the point of overload, trapping the sensory impressions in the amygdala in the brain. The amygdala is your fight or flight center in the brain. This is why so-called critical incident debriefing, where disaster survivors are encouraged to talk it out, can itself be a disaster for the 25% of people who remain severely traumatized after the event. So if you know anything about hypnosis and or trauma, then it won't surprise you to learn that according to research published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, high hypnotizability, which you can find in about 25% of people, is correlated with a high risk of developing extreme and long-lasting PTSD and phobias. So the people who are prone to develop long-lasting PTSD and phobias are also the people who are most easily hypnotized. And that's because PTSD and phobias are essentially hypnotic conditions. They're not cognitive conditions, they're not faulty thinking styles or anything like that. They're hypnotic conditions. During a traumatic event, the mind becomes totally focused, as if hypnotized by the situation, because it is hypnotized. Hypnosis is the ultimate learning state. The mind can learn within milliseconds to respond later on to a post-hypnotic trigger, which reactivates the traumatic incident. So, a car backfiring might trigger a flashback in a war veteran, because hypnosis is natural, it happens naturally, and sometimes in a good way, and sometimes in a terrible way. So thankfully, the same characteristics that make people susceptible to PTSD and phobias is also what makes them easy to treat with hypnosis. Okay, they're already skilled at going into hypnosis, but being too skilled at going into hypnosis meant they became more deeply traumatized. So, what else couldn't I treat so effectively if I limited myself to working only with the conscious mind? So, number 2, clinical depression. When I worked on the psych ward many years ago, some of the patients were so depressed they would sit in the same position for many hours. They were glassy-eyed, tranced out, completely inwardly focused. They also manifested something else associated with the more traditional hypnotic trance. They would show signs of physical catalepsy. So this is a kind of rigid immobility that is also evidenced when we dream at night. Nature wants us immobile during dream sleep so we don't start to act out our dreams physically. So we have this cataleptic sort of paralysis during the dream phase. And we also see this sometimes in hypnotized subjects, where you could pick up an arm and it would remain rigid there, because we're accessing the REM state. during waking. So later, when I learned about hypnosis and also more about depression, I understood that depression can be described as a kind of internally focused negative trance state. Depressed people always have higher than normal levels of the stress hormone cortisol in their bloodstreams, and cortisol inhibits clear thinking, solution-focused thinking. This is why trying to do cognitive therapy with a clinically depressed person before they've relaxed deeply and so lowered cortisol levels may be like trying to open your front door before putting your key in the lock. So I use hypnosis not just to deeply relax my depressed clients, lower cortisol levels and help them gain instant relief, but also to help de-traumatize them if need be. And I also try to get them to mentally rehearse engaging in healthy behaviors and thinking patterns so that they can feel fully connected to their internal resources and begin to live a life that better meets their primal human emotional needs. And next up, addiction is something else that I find without the use and knowledge of clinical hypnosis is extremely difficult to treat. So I've used hypnosis to help unhook the pathological narrow focus of all kinds of addictive trance states, from the 80-a-day smoker to the people feeling unable to escape the grip of heroin, cocaine or alcohol, as well as sexual addictions and other compulsions. Now, addiction rides on the back of the brain's clever learning mechanism. Whenever we learn and master anything new, our brains reward us with a dopamine release, a dose of feel-good for our efforts. So my attention is locked and narrowed by learning a new piece on the guitar, and when I master that piece, I get a burst of feel-good hormone. I've played that piece through for the first time perfectly, and it feels fantastic to have mastered that. But that feeling of fantastic elation doesn't last long. So in order to carry on feeling good with learning the guitar, I have to learn more and more guitar pieces, more complex pieces and so forth. Once I've mastered what I'm learning, the brain turns down the reward feeling. That's the thing. And you habituate to the reward feeling. So I become habituated to the piece of music I can play, and it becomes just something I can do now. Okay. I might even be thinking about something else when I'm playing it. So I need more and more learning, more and more skill to get the same reward feeling. This highly useful mechanism is hijacked by addictions, such as, for example, when we cheat the reward system by consuming chemicals of which we need more and more to get the same fix. When an addict really needs their next and greater fix, nothing else seems to matter. Their attention becomes pinpointed onto the next drink, or the next cigarette, or the next turn of the wheel in the casino, or the next extravagant purchase or shot of heroin. Their focus of attention narrows right the way down in a very hypnotic way. And we can help unhook the negative trance state of addiction by using therapeutic trances with our dependent clients, and also use hypnosis to help them gain the self-confidence to engage in healthier life goals and habits. Hypnosis is not, of course, a therapy in itself, but it's the most powerful way of delivering therapy. It's a delivery mechanism for good psychotherapy. Paradoxically, natural hypnotic trance is both the cause and maintainer of problem states, and is also the best way to alleviate them. Because when we're hypnotized, we learn deeply, and whether that learning is destructive or constructive makes all the difference. When you know how, you can skillfully use the right kind of hypnosis to help cure someone of debilitating flashbacks and nightmares, unhook the automatic need to drink or smoke, or just help someone relax deeply enough that they have a chance to regain some perspective in life again. I, for one, am exceedingly grateful I learned how to do hypnotherapy early in my career, and I suspect quite a few of my clients are as well. So I hope you found that useful, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to hear when my next video is published, hit the notification bell below this video. I'm Mark Tyrrell of Uncommon Knowledge, and if you'd like to subscribe to my email newsletter, you can find it over at unk.com/blog. That's unk.com/blog, and thanks for watching.